Okay, this time we're going to talk about encrypting backups. Now, encrypting backups in Minion Backup is extremely easy and it's very flexible. I think you're going to like what we did for you here. Let's take a look at what it takes to set up inside Minion. So we're going to start with the backup settings table. And over here, we've got the Minion default row. If you don't know what that means, then see some of our other videos. And right here, I'm going to say encrypt equals true. And is active equals true, and that's the only row that's active, so I know that for a fact that my values are going to come from this row. So I'm saying that I want to encrypt it. That's easy, right? So now all I have to do is set up the actual encryption inside of the system. So if you look at Minion.Backup encryption, you can see here that we have the database name, the backup type, the cert name, the cert type, the cert name, the encryption algorithm, and the thumbprint. And right now, this is the only row that's active. So most of this stuff is self-explanatory, especially if you know how to take encrypted backups. Now, encrypted backups are only available in SQL 2014 and above, right? So right now, the cert type is backup encryption. That's the only value that is acceptable in the column at this time, and the cert name and the encryption algorithm. Now, SQL supports a number of encryption algorithms. I'm going to leave it to you to go to MSDN to find out which ones. The reason why I didn't specify that in the documentation is because these encryption algorithms can come and go depending on the version of SQL you're on. And even in the future, right? So I didn't want to hard code what encryption algorithms were available in any given version of SQL. So here we're going to be backing up with triple des, and then of course the thumbprint. Now, where do you find this information? Well, you can find this information from mastersys.certificates. Okay, so let's start off first with doing a quick backup with the cert that we have, and then I'll show you how to add another cert for a specialized situation. So let's go ahead and back up the bit database. Oops. Well, let me show you what the statement is going to look like. There we go. So I've got this guy here. I'll copy it, and I'll just put it right here. There we go. So you can see that I've got my backup statement with encryption algorithm equals triple des, and then I've got my backup cert right there. So now that I've got that, let's go ahead and run one. Now I'm going to run it out of backup DB just for this example. Even though we always recommend using backup master, we're just going to focus on this individual database for now. So I'm going to do that. It'll take just a few seconds. There we go. Now let's go in the log and see what we have here. So I've pulled out the backup encryption columns out of the log here, and let's run this and see what we got. So this is the latest one. So you can see I've got my bit, backup cert, yes. Which cert do I use? What's the thumbprint? And what is the encryption algorithm? So you've got the information here that you need to be able to pull this stuff back together if you need to. And to even see if something changed recently, right? So that's taking a basic encrypted backup. It's extremely easy. Now, let's talk about a little bit more advanced config where maybe we want this database, this bit database, to back up with a different cert. So what we would have to do in here, we have to enter in an exception row in the settings table, right, in the backup settings table. And I've already got this row in here. Now the only thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn this guy on. Where am I? There we are. Turn that guy on. And maybe I want this to be the only one that gets backed up with encryption, right? If so, then I would take this guy up here, this top row, this Minion default row, and I would set encryption equal to false, if I can find it. There it is, encrypt equals false. But right now we're going to get our own row here. Now, like I said, the only reason that we would want to do this is if we weren't encrypting all of the other databases, or if we were encrypting all the other databases and we didn't want to encrypt this one, right? So it's going to be whichever one is going to be different, right? It's going to be the change or the override, if you will. So right now we're currently encrypting both of these, And you notice how this says backup type of all. Let me expand that a little bit. So this is backup type of all, but maybe I only want to encrypt the full backups, or maybe I only want to encrypt the log backups, right? So maybe I would have a row for all here that has encryption turned off, and another row here for the bit database for full with encryption turned on. And that means that only the full backups for the bit database will be encrypted, and then maybe none of these are encrypted. Okay? So that's how that kind of precedence works. We've got that stuff documented in other videos. Now, let's look at what we need to do to install this. So we've already got a master key because we've already got a backup certificate. You just saw that I took an encrypted backup, so we've already got a master key. So all I need is a certificate. So I'm in master. All I have to do is create this cert. There, the cert's created. I can come over to this other window, and here's where I can pull that information directly out of sys certificates. So I'm putting in the database name, the backup type, the cert type. Remember, always has to be backup encryption right now. Now this is where I pull the name out of sys certs, the encryption algorithm, and the thumbprint, and 1, which means that that row is active. So let's go ahead and do that. So now if I look at backup encryption, you can see I have a new row for bit right here, and everybody else is using triple DES, but this one's going to use AES 256. Now let's see if my backup picks up this new row and this new encryption cert. So I'm going to take this back up. And again, it'll just be a few seconds here. There we go. Now let's look at the backup details. And you can see this last backup right here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted this one. There we go. And you can see this last backup right here did in fact use the new bit backup cert, and it used the AES 256. So while all the other databases on the server can be using one, this guy can be using the other. And that's controlled, oops, again, through the backup encryption table. So here's the Minion default for all of the backup types. Every database will be using this backup type, except for the bit, and all of bit's encryptions will be using this encryption. Okay? Now, you could even say I want fulls using this certificate and logs using this certificate, right? So you can even mix and match like that. But notice that with all of these exceptions, with all of these overrides, and I could have 3,000 databases on here and every one of them backing up with a different cert, that you don't need a separate job for any of it. It's all built right into the system. So you can even rotate backup certificates, encryption certificates, right, if you want to. So you can encrypt the backup monthly and rotate out your certs. And it wouldn't even be hard to create a procedure that creates a new cert and then changes the row in here once a month so that every single month you're rotating backup certs. So that's a really secure way to run your operations. And as long as you keep this log data around, then you can most definitely know which cert and which encryption algorithm you were using for each individual backup. And since Minion Backup also backs up all of your certs, then as long as you keep a nice long retention period on all of those certs, then you can even go back 6 months and you can see if you need to restore, say, this copy of this database, then you can restore this copy from 6 months ago, and you even still have the cert, so you can even still, so you can manage it that way, and you have very fine-grained control over your encrypted backups. All of this happens, being able to back up different databases with different certs out of here, being able to specify each database and each backup type even having encryption or not encryption, and being able to rotate your certs, all happens, is all made very easy with Minion Backup. It doesn't require any extra jobs, and most of this stuff is very codable. So if you want to make a rotating change, all you have to do is write an SP to write some update statements, and Minion Backup will pick up those new settings and you're done. So it's very easy to configure, and there's absolutely nothing else you need to do. Minion Backup just starts encrypting your backups.